Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Jennings, your intuitive astrologer here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I am bringing to you guys today the third house, Christ's third house, which is our third house because we are in Him, He is in us, we are one, and He has Uranus, Lilith, Zeus, and Apollo in Aries. Actually, Apollo is in Taurus, and then He has Uranus that brings this, future connection. This future connection leads us off in this third house. And he leads us off with the language of the sacrificial lamb. So let's get started. So I'm not just going to, talk about this house, this story, our story in astrological terms, but more so in the spiritual. I want you to get a glimpse of the spiritual terms, get a sense of this spiritual potential that we all possess, and it's unlimited. The potential that we have within us is like the phoenix rising. The potential is limitless. And so the fool could be the 0, it could be the 22 in the tarot. And the tarot is telling us the story of creation. It tells us the story of man and his journey of unfoldment and completion, right? So the symbolism of this unlimited potential is power, it's creativity, it's purpose, it's talents and skill. And the upright fool brings the innocence, freedom, spontaneity. And so these new beginnings, this desire for, moving forward in life is what Uranus brings to us. It is the air element. And so everything is happening in the garden, in the mind of God. And I want you to understand that this is so much more than just, me explaining to you some of the things that the Bible means. It goes so much deeper. It goes so much deeper because we were there in the very beginning. We are the sons and daughters of God. And Christ shows us the perfect pattern, the completion of the story. The finishing touches is what we are adding right now in history. And the future is what we are bringing to this story. And so our communications within these fields with Uranus, with Mercury, with the moon, this energy that is a higher octave. This is the Christ consciousness that is for this time to show us our potential. And the magician is something that I'm going to go into. The high priestess, also something I'm going to go into. And so these magnetic fields of communication that I'm using right now to convey the story is something else that, we're really going to have to get deep discussions about. And so let's move on. All right, so moving right along in this third house, the twins represent Gemini. In the constellation of Gemini sits Castor and Pollux. And I'm going to tell you about the Greek mythos, okay? I'm going to tell you about what has been left for us to discover. Because the truth is what remains. The truth is what remains, and it is what rises in each one of us in our consciousness. All of these ancient myths tell the same stories over and over again. And these stories are rooted in the heavens. They are rooted in our stars, in the sun, the moon, the planets, as above, so below, as within, so without. So please keep that in mind when you are hearing these stories and you are hearing about the different attributes or the different archetypes that are being described within the houses, and especially here in this third house, because this third house is so important to our story right now. Because right now, we have a choice. We have a choice about how we communicate with one another, right? And we have a choice on how we collectively evolve in time, with time, and through time. So In mythology and astrology, the twins represent Castor and Pollux of Greek mythology. They share the same mom, Leda, and Castor's father is Tyndareus, the king of Sparta, who was Leda's husband, and Pollux's father is Zeus. Pollux was immortal, and his twin brother Castor was mortal until Zeus made Castor immortal. Because when he passed away, Pollux could not continue to go on. And Zeus, having compassion, raised his twin brother up to the light, and he was reborn. Reborn was this twin. The twins were young, they were handsome, they took part in many adventures together, and they were well known for their energy, their curiosity, just as any Gemini attribute, they would have them all, right? Castor, like I said, he was the one that was fathered by Tyndareus, the king of Sparta. He was a horseman, while Pollux was known for his great strength. Their sister is immortal, Helen of Troy, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. The great Trojan War was fought over her. They were warring, right? They were warring over this feminine, this woman. The twins not only took part in that war, but they were also Argonauts. Argo means ship. They were Argonauts on the quest of the Golden Fleece. And if you know anything about alchemy and gold, then there's your clue. In Greek mythology, the Golden Fleece is the fleece of the golden wool, the winged ram, Chrysomallus. That is the term. Jason was ancient Greek mythological hero. He was the leader of the Argonauts, whose quest for the Golden Fleece features in Greek literature. He was the son of Aeson, the king of Locos. Locos was situated in Magnesia, ancient Thessaly. The idea that the legend of Magnus the Shepherd could have its origin with the word magnet seems pretty legit. Magnet is derived from the legend of Magnus, or, like I said, from the territory of Magnesia. Pliny states that Magnus the shepherd discovered it, and the legend told of him is that while carrying a message over Mount Ida, he felt his feet clinging to the earth, to the iron ore which lay thickly upon the hill. Hence the name Magnet. Magnesia was a territory whence this native iron was for hundreds of years exported. So the name Magnet is no doubt due to this place. Jason and his father Aeson lived in this area. So no doubt they understood and used the power of magnetism. Aeson sent Jason to Chiron to be educated, while Pollux, afraid that he would be overthrown, was warned by an oracle to beware of a man wearing one sandal. Many years later, Pollux was holding the Olympics in honor of Poseidon when Jason, rushing to Locos, lost one of his sandals in a river while helping Hera, who is said to also be Juno, in the form of an old woman cross. When Jason entered Locos, he was announced as a man wearing one sandal. So paranoid, Pollux asked Jason, what would you do if you were confronted with the man who would be your downfall? And Jason responded, I would send that man after the Golden Fleece. And so Pollux took that advice and sent Jason to retrieve the Golden Fleece. Jason was married to the sorceress Medea. He was also the great-grandson of the messenger Hermes through his mom's side. Jason appears in various literary works in the classical world of Greece and Rome, including the epic poem Argonautica and the tragedy of Medea. And after much tragedy, Jason, asleep under the stern of the rotting Argo, fell on him, killed him instantly. And so this story about the twins, about the duality, the warring of the duality that we are constantly undergoing in our consciousness, is only because the united male and female, the yin yang, has yet to be discovered as one. It's yet to be discovered as one. And so this electromagnetism that we can understand here in the third house with Castor and Pollux, we can understand that the magnet, the earth is a magnet. We are electromagnetic beings. We are energy beings. And I want to note too here that, when Azon sent Jason to Chiron to be educated, this is done a lot throughout our history with the sons of God, because the sons of God have many names in our collective consciousness in history. And this consciousness is calling on us to heal, because Jason going to Chiron in his younger days is just like the story of Asclepius, Apollo's son, going to be educated by Chiron. Chiron is the wounded warrior in astrology. It's the wounded warrior. Right now, the wounded warrior is in Aries. The wounded warrior rises, this Kundalini energy rises within the native, and this energy transforms this wounded warrior into a wounded healer. And so the sons of God rise to heal. They rise to not only heal themselves, but they rise to heal their brother and sister as well. And I think that is the main message that the twins here, Castor and Pollux, teach us, right? It's the same story, guys. It's the same story. It's just that it's told in so many different ages, and the truth remains. The truth will always remain. And when the truth is hidden, it rises. There's always a time that truth will rise. And let me tell you, there's nothing new under the sun. Not one thing is new under the sun. Mercury rules the twins. Mercury is the planet ruler. And Mercury is also, we can look at Mercury as the magician, the magi, the astrologers that came, that the Bible talks about. The magi were astrologers. The magician rules the air, right? The thinking and the manifesting, because as the tarot, the number one tarot, out of zero comes the one, the magician, and the tarot, the affirmation is as above, so below. It is my will that such and such, and I decree, so it may be, so it is. Mercury is the third, it's the third house ruler of Gemini. It's the brainiest of all planets. It's got this twin, this dualism. And so some people can speculate that Thomas, the twin, was, a brainiac, or they could say, well, maybe he was, Jesus's twin, but I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all. Now, throughout time, has Jesus had twins? Yes. Cain and Abel? Yes. There is, throughout time, Jesus has had many incarnations, just like you have, just like I have. And we can see here from the zero that there's tons of potential. There's tons of potential, and it's open to interpretation. Now, God said that he created both male and female in his own image. And so that could be the hermaphrodite. Hermes, going into that oneness with Aphrodite. And then now we've got both male and female in one. Just like that phoenix that rises. The phoenix that rises can give birth from itself. It doesn't need dualism, right? So we can just speculate. Uranus is in this third house, which we'll get into, and this is that higher octave, the higher octave of Mercury. And Mercury is said to represent Hermes in Greek mythology. So he can be seen as the spoken word as well. This dual nature, right, that Thoth birthed. So the thought births a word. The word grouped together with other words creates a sentence. And once this sentence comes, all these words together, when they come together, that is what Aquarius symbolizes, is when everyone comes together as one. When these words are grouped together, they sentence their brother, right? You can sentence your brother to life. You can sentence them to death, right? It's this unified field, this higher octave that Uranus brought Christ. And that is what the cupbearer brings to us, is we can be poured into. But before you can be poured into, your cup cannot be full. You have to empty. So this is a huge time of healing for Christ, where he is emptying out, he is healing. And this is where, at the young age, we can see that uh, that the Magi knew that Christ had lived before, and that there was going to be some healing that's going to have to take place, and that there is going to be some tricks, and there's going to be some tricks that he's going to have to learn how to overcome, to bring in for the betterment of mankind, and to take this dualistic nature and to combine it. And so that's what we're going to see going into this third house. Uranus is this first aspect that we see in Christ's third house in Aries. And Uranus was discovered by William Herschel in 1781 and was named after the Greek god Uranus. And the Romans, always adopted these gods, and the Romans named him Callus. Uranus was the son and or husband of Gaia and the first sky god. His father is said to have sometimes been the ether or the air. He is the father of the Titans, the Cyclops, Aphrodite. And the story goes is that, or one of the stories is that he was horrified by what his eldest children were doing here on Earth. So he locked them up, and Gaia, being in so much pain, she convinced her Titan sons to fight their father. Kronos, Saturn, one of these Titans, castrates Uranus with a sickle, and his blood causes the birth of fury, vengeance, and the giants walk the earth. The Uranus cycle is every 84 years, and every 7 years it enters each of our 12 houses. And so this liberator, this awakener, this shaker brings sudden changes and shocks into the house if it is not in balance. It's electromagnetic, and Uranus rules the 11th house, which is, about your community. It's about bringing people together. It's about the collective consciousness. It's about, the truth and the future, being innovative, ideas that are just coming out of the air. Like, where did this stuff come from? This is genius. That is what Aquarius Uranus is about. These upheavals that Uranus brings to the native can bring restrictions, but these restrictions allows the native to take a more liberated path. Now, in ancient literature, Callus, Saturn, and Jupiter refer to these three divine energies. And in the Neoplatonic school, the first god, Callus, or Uranus, and then Saturn, the intellect, and soul, the son of the intelligible, Jupiter. And some writers, Roman writers, believe that the monotheistic god of Judaism is Uranus. Again, Uranus is about being at one. It's about the collective consciousness. It's about coming together. And I just want to say that Gemini is in the United States North Node. We just switched from Cancer to now Gemini. And I want you to understand that In 1781, yes, Uranus was found, but the United States was 5 years old. And the United States natal chart has Uranus in the 11th house. And the 11th house rules, right? Uranus rules that 11th house, so it's comfortable there. Not only is it comfortable, but it's in Gemini. It's in the sign of Gemini for the United States, meaning this dualism. And that is when this, a lot of things changed. A lot of things were changing in the backdrop. But our forefathers set into motion this placement because they did have an astrologer. Saint Germain was there, and he was an astrologer, and they set into place a country that would be a liberating type of country, that would offer freedom, that would offer liberties to people that, foreigners that couldn't get it in their own country. And so this was very, very significant for them to set in place a stipulation, right? Because in contracts, there's a stipulation. And they knew that truth is always going to be distorted. And so the things that they wanted in place for the United States, they had stipulations per God. And that is the reason why we are going to see so much upheaval, because we have to get back on path. We have to get on that liberating path where we're liberating groups of people, because to be free is not, to be free is not free. It's costing us everything. It costs us everything. We can't even think for ourselves anymore, right? And Uranus, as a higher form of consciousness, is what this cupbearer is bringing to us. Who is thirsty for the truth? Uranus came into Gemini in 1942. Now, Tesla died in 1943, and all of his stuff was confiscated. And so we can see that Uranus shook things up for the future. Instead of them taking this, all of this work that Tesla did to liberate man, they enslaved him even more. And I want you to know, just like Christ is letting us all know right here, is that modern man is going one way, we're going another. We're trying to take a more spiritual path while the leaders are taking a more machinery path. This is where the two fishes, guys, this is where the two fishes are swimming in opposite directions. We have a choice. We have a choice, just like we have all the time. We have not left the garden. There is a choice. And let it be known that Uranus goes out of Taurus into Gemini once again, like the United States birth chart, in 2026. So between now and 2026, we are making choices. We're making choices for our future. Our sustainable future is what Uranus is interested in. Uranus is interested in the magnetic field of the earth, in the magnetic field of the human being, the health, the sustainable future of humanity. Between now and 26, we have choices. And let me just tell you, the electromagnetic field is life. There is nothing that you see in your outer world that does not have a polar opposite. It is polar. We are going through a paradigm shift. The earth is going through her own shift. We are shifting in time with time, and there is unlimited potentials. The tarot is zero. Uranus in the tarot is zero. It can be 0 or it can be 22, because it is the beginning and it is the end. Uranus in Aries wants to see things clearly. Christ is showing us here that we need to see clearly without being a victim of unorganized thinking. Uranus in Aries for Christ taught mastery of the magnetic fields of energy. He had the drive, he had the natural connection, which is, if you remember why he was always on the mountain, he was always going, to the sea. He was using these fields of energy to heal and to connect people to a sustainable future. our future. Our story is his story. This is an independent and highly determined truth that Uranus brings the individual to bring to the collective, because Uranus is all about the collective consciousness. Uranus wants people to come together. Uranus wants you to know that you are one with the Father. Yes, Christ had an unpredictable nature with Uranus being here in his third house. It could have went against his own best interest, but the reason with a capital R is the reason why he allowed himself to be backed into the corner, to pick up the cross, and to show the future age that we all have crosses to bear. We all have crosses to bear, but you are not alone. You are not alone. We are one. Uranus and Aries people have a strong drive to prevail their futuristic, magnetic, and inventive ideas to the world. And because it's in Aries, Jesus would have had warring within. He would have had warring with his siblings and the outer world until he was able to unite these energies. And, people fear what they don't understand. And so even though you may not understand now, these seeds have been planted throughout time for us to discover. And so when it is your time to understand, you are going to understand. Christ spoke in history for the completion of our story in the future. And this placement that he has in the third house creates a brilliant and inventive mind, an eccentric genius. They are highly logical, and so they may have issues with compassion, whereas the need to balance rather than being cut off from the emotions is what we see. The third house also represents how you learn, how you think, how you apply with your siblings and your friends. And it's all about logic and skill. And he was definitely miraculous in both. This Pandora's box, when she opens it, it releases decay. It releases lies. It releases this trickster into the air. And when we open this box, we want to understand. We want to understand what it is that really is going on with this Pandora's box, because what we value, our connection right now through this video, I'm getting a video out to you, but it goes against what I'm telling you, meaning it's going against this technology that I'm using to deliver this message. And when this message is delivered, I will opt out of the system. But I have to deliver this message in the way that we are connected right now. Because not everyone understands this truth yet. But I can promise you that by 2026, there won't be one person left on this earth that will not understand what Uranus is really all about and what the technology is doing to our health and to our sustainable future. Lilith is the next aspect we see here in Christ's third house in Aries. So, again, let's think about it. Our story is his story. And right now, Lilith and Uranus are having a conversation. And Lilith is the high priestess. We can see her as the two in the tarot. She's that archetypal balance, that feminine balance that merges. Well, she emerges from the one to create the two. And this is chaos. Love brings chaos. It brings chaos when we are scared to lose it. She brings attachments. She brings this unfoldment, right? And she represents the empty focal point of the moon's elliptical orbital path around the earth. And as an astrological symbol, she shows that this unfoldment of the archetypal feminine power of creation and growth and decay and destruction, she's connected with emotional maturity, right? So if you have these turbulent feelings, this rage, this is an inner balance. And so she's trying to bring harmony She tries to bring harmony to these volcanic eruptions that come within us. And she wants to reveal them to us. She wants to reveal ourself to ourself. And there's the spiritual renunciation and sometimes a material renunciation with Lilith. And so this can create this resonance with the south and the north node. And Christ is in the fourth house. His south node is in the fourth house of Taurus, which is, about his home and the earth. And it's at 16 degrees, which when divided is 8 for the numerology buffs. But Lilith being so close here to Uranus and Aries at 9 degrees is showing us this attainment. Because in the tarot, there's this an attainment with the 9. She's this feminine intuition, this compassionate energy. And so he is combining and these two energies, and he is becoming more compassionate. He's becoming more compassionate with his thoughts and his communication. And, this duality is just coming together. It's being, as one. And she can also symbolize that which was in Christ's twin, that emotional feminine side that he lacked. And this dark side he would have tamed. He would have tamed for the betterment of mankind. And Jesus had to understand that this feminine and the masculine energies, that yin and the yang, when combined, is an energy force of healing within the magnetic field of the collective. It's this ultimate union of creativity and manifestation. Those two atoms, smashing together again. We can see this as creation of giving birth to something new. There's the number 2 in the tarot is a choice, and we can expand and go into 3, and we can create, something else for outside of ourselves. And we see that in this creativity and the manifestation. And so we could say, well, did Jesus have a child? Well, we don't know. The story doesn't say that he had a child. And why would he? He is rising to Christ. Why would he come back for any other type of karma here? The relationships, if he were to keep his relationships as a non-attachment, that is really better for his spirit. And so I don't see him I see him controlling these energies more than anything. I see him mastering them all. And let it be known that Mary of Magdala was this balance for Christ, this outer balance that we see. He lifted her energies, she lifted his, and this Magdala stone was recently unearthed, I believe, in 2013. But, she could have been this anti-vertex. There was an intense experience that we talked about with Jesus in his second house. So, there is this, in this third house where he is trying to let go, and he is trying to perfect with the Father within him. This genius, to empower himself would have to have understood how to do it. And so in order to understand how to do it, he would have had to have had more feminine friends that would help him be able to disassociate so much with the masculine side and to bring this emotional maturity. Or it could have been vice versa, where he had more feminine, and so he's trying to balance the masculine. But, here she sees to it that the dark faces of yourself are revealed, and that emotional manipulation and disordered aggression can be turned into and evolved into something more mature, more giving of life, and sentencing your brother and sister to life instead of being so ugly and, killing people. Because, Jesus in his younger days was, knocking people over dead because he would get mad. So, he had to learn early how to control and set up boundaries for himself. Next in line, we have Zeus. So we have Uranus, and then we have Lilith, and now we have Zeus all in Aries. And Zeus was a trans-Neptunian planet. So purposeful activity, enthusiasm, creative energy, balance. He's organized when it comes to leadership, and this energy can also be aggressive if it does not apply the creativity in the most positive manner. But this is the type of balanced energy that brings purpose and destiny to a manifestation, to fruition. The bull, which represents the sign of Taurus, was actually originally Zeus, the ancient Greek god in disguise who had fathered 3 children with Europa, who he helped cross the sea while in his non-human avatar. And remember when Christ walked on the water and he was going to walk past the boat until the disciples saw him and called out to him? It was then that he noticed that they were in the boat. So he had a futuristic, there was this futuristic type of transcendence, right? The water bearing Aquarius symbol is said to be Ganymede, who Zeus had assigned the task of being the cupbearer for the gods. He had asked his daughter first, Hebe, and she is said to be this dual nature of this balanced energy that this archetype brings Christ here in this 3rd house. Now, let it be known too that Ganymede is named for a boy who was made cupbearer for the ancient Greek gods by Zeus, Jupiter to the Romans. So the story that surrounds this boy, a lot of our myths have stories that surround homosexual nature. And this is simply not what I'm receiving. Now, what I am receiving is that in our times past, this was a homosexual nature. But as the Christ story, what Christ's story tells me, when Jesus raises to be the Christ in this incarnation, this boy is not homosexual in nature. He is actually the blending of Hermes and Aphrodite. So he would be more likely to be that hermaphrodite, right? That is liberated, because Uranus is also a liberating planet. Uranus wants to liberate us all with love. And that doesn't mean that this magnetic love should be in a homosexual in nature. It just means that, not that homosexuality is, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, you just love who you love. And that is also what Uranus tries to show us here, is that you do love who you want to love. And it really doesn't make any difference whether Jesus was homosexual in nature or not. But what it does show us, what the spiritual essence that we see, is the blending of the male and the female. The image he made, that God made, was both male and female. And so when you combine them together, it's a hermaphrodite. It is a blending of these energies. So take it for what you will. But this is not something that gives the Romans or anyone else the right to lust after a young man and not have control over that type of desire, of that sense. Because there is something about being able to raise this kundalini and raise your energies when you do control these energies, because you have control. You have complete control over your energies. They do not control you. It is when you're not aware of them that they control you. People love Jesus. He had this magnetic quality about him. And, he rose in Venus, with Venus. And so he is a beautiful star. He is this beautiful young boy. And, can we say that he could have had a homosexual experience with one of his leaders when he was younger, and that could have been an intense experience for him? We can speculate all day long what this stuff really would mean over the course of our history and time. But I'm talking about with Christ, and how Christ could have raised himself with these magnetic qualities. Instead of being about self, he could have really maintained this balance at a young age and had this control over his magnetism, over his magnetic field, right? Because the magnetic field is clear vision. When they say that Zeus sweeps down and grabs the young boy, that he swoops down as an eagle, that he had transformed himself into an eagle. What can an eagle do that we cannot do? Well, a bird, that Jesus symbolizes in that, early on, he could change the clay and of the earth, and he could, clap his hands, right? He could have this force that came together, these atoms smashing, and he could have this wonderful creation of birds flying. That what he was using the magnetic qualities of himself, the magnetic field of the earth and his soul, that relationship that we have with God and the astrolite. So this is what it symbolizes to me, is the clear vision that an eagle has within the magnetic fields, within the creativity that we all possess, that Christ shows us. Ganymede can represent in like the 12th and 13th century of castration. And this is where, the ancients wanted to, or, I say the ancients, but, in the 1200s, 1300s, I'm sure that there are still people that do castrate themselves because they want to be pure. And this goes back to Ganymede. It goes back to this, this nature that we all have, these desires that we all have, but the control that we must take over ourselves and over our desires is what helps us grow with nature, in time. Now, get this for our third house of communications that Christ shows us, and that, this natural connection is showing us, is that Ganymede is like Europa, thought to have a subsurface ocean overlying a liquid iron and nickel core. Ganymede, a satellite of Jupiter, is the largest and most massive of the solar system's moons. And so not only is this moon massive in size, massive in our solar system, it is the only moon that has its own magnetic field. And, the magnetic field causes electrified gases. It causes ribbons of glowing and auras and this beautiful, colorful prism. And this moon, not only does it have its own magnetic field, but its magnetic field is embedded inside of Jupiter's massive magnetosphere. So let's think about this with our story and the third house and the magnetism and how we can use it to heal, or we can use it to kill. We can use this massive expansion of gnosis that Jesus teaches us about, the birds, being able to smash atoms together and create. And I imagine that that's what all of this is all about. Is all of these colliders around the world smashing atoms. They're just, they're trying to create the same type of magic that Christ created. And if they have, and they're looking for this particle, maybe they're just not looking in the right places. And they haven't really, you have to look into the spiritual atmosphere of the magnetic field and what it is truly conveying to us right now in our modern day, right now. Like, what is this really conveying to us about homosexuality, about, lust for children, whether it be, homosexual, a man lusting after a little boy, a woman lusting after a little girl. These are the lower attributes that rise in man. And does he have control over these thoughts? Yes, he does. If a thought comes up like that, all you have to do is just push it back down. You don't have to act on it. And this is where the beast will slowly be quiet and just go away. But the more that you stir shit, the worse it stinks. So the more that you focus on something, the more that it manifests. And that is what the magician teaches us. That is what, Hermes, the dualistic of the word, the lower self that, is always trying to satisfy his needs. And these senses will lie. They'll lie to you. You have to use your intuition, your natural connection to God. And, we all have bestiality thoughts. And it's just, do we act on them? do we act on them? And how do we act on them? It's really important. It matters in our history. It matters for our future because we have to have more control over our own emotions, over our own energies. And we have to be aware of them. We have to be aware that we are magnetically energized, conducive beings. The next aspect we see is Apollo. So now we have Uranus, we have Lilith, and then we have Zeus all in Aries. And then Apollo, before we go into this fourth house, Apollo leads off in the sign of Taurus, which, we can debate whether or not Taurus is, ruled by Venus or ruled by Zeus, but we're going to just keep it simple, okay? We're just going to keep it simple and say that Taurus represents the Earth's magnetic field. Okay, let's just keep it simple and look at it in that aspect. So in mythology, Apollo was also the son of Zeus and the Greek god of music. In astrology, Apollo is where you can take something for granted and ignore it to your detriment. But when you focus on it, you'll become a master of it. And Christ certainly became a master at his communication, the way he was thinking, his thoughts, right? His thoughts and the way that he communicated. There was a strong drive to communicate precisely, clearly, and in a way that would help the future age in Aquarius. The orderly motion of the cosmos depends on Apollo as bearer of purpose and intelligence of the divine light of the sun. It is a reasoning principle along with the principle of virtue that keeps these planets on their courses. Apollo is the god of prophecy, the keeper of knowledge, and a symbol of higher consciousness. Apollo was gifted in the knowledge of healing and science, as the root of these two are one in the same. He brought light, which is synonymous for knowledge, great teacher, right? Truth was a deep, deep element for Christ, for Apollo. All the sun gods are deeply truthful, and they have a rising within them that they show us, where they reveal their darkness and they transcend it into the light. And here it reveals Christ sought truth, nothing but the truth, so help him God, right? And here Apollo gives Christ an energy of high intelligence to apply logic and reason with virtue, and once in balance, Christ was beyond talent. Destiny formed from unconscious effort, application of intelligence, where our experiences inspire the masses, and that's what he did. Everybody loved Christ. Everybody loved him. We can communicate with truth. We can live with truth. We can do this, and that is seen with this energy. And the intuition is certainly applied with this critical thinking, because that's what Apollo does, is he brings in that intuition and that gnosis. And, Apollo was the father of Asclepius. Asclepius being the healer. He was the healer. There was Asclepion. There was there's tons of literature out there that talk about the beautiful essence that Asclepius possessed. And, in order to bring back balance, well, he had to go back in the sky. He had to go back in the sky as Ophiuchus, that 13th sign, or that, that hermaphrodite, the blending of the two, the blending of the male and the female energies, this balance that Ophiuchus brings. That's really what Ophiuchus stands for, is this balance. The balance of, the male dominance over the female dominance. This is where the two come together as one, and the chaos is not seen. And so we can say that this coming together is a union. It could, the outer union could be, male and female coming together in a sexual union. And then it creates, right? It creates this beautiful, baby into the world. But it's a Pandora's box, nevertheless. It's still a Pandora's box, because what we are doing is we are uniting, we are creating, and then we are birthing into this world a life a life that is destined for death and not life. We are sentencing the baby to death when we have this outer union. And so what we're trying to do here is get this union to where when we do birth the baby is not going to be born into a world of death. What the stories of Jason and Jesus, Hermes, Asclepius, Aphrodite, all these sun gods, they healed. They healed with love, with virtue, with wisdom, and they showed the way that they could work with their energy fields. And both Jason and Jesus speak of the one sandal. And you can decipher for yourself what all this means. And the one sandal to me means that the two were no longer needed. The two sandals were no longer needed. Just one sandal is needed, because all you have to do is combine the male and the female, the yin and the yang, to produce this phoenix that rises up within, right? Because the phoenix gives birth to itself. And that's what God represents. The God energy in us gives birth to itself, and it wants liberating. It wants freedom. It wants love. It wants everyone to connect and to heal, to have, just this wonderful heaven. And that's what we're bringing to the earth. That's what Jesus foresaw in the future. And that's what his energy has. This is the energy since the beginning of the garden. And, this magnetic field is that Pandora's box. It's that Pandora's box that when you open it, it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like this can heal us, but it can kill us. It's the same as the serpent. It's the same as the serpent. It is that knowledge that when used correctly, it turns into this beautiful wisdom and this life, the sentencing of life. But when we use it in a way that with our labors, when we labor and we use it to get it over on our brother and sister, that's when it causes us death. And think about how long we've been doing that. Apollo, his unborn child, Asclepius, when Asclepius' mom passed away, Apollo didn't know what to do, so he cut his wife open and he delivered Asclepius. And that means to cut open. So that is seen as the very first C-section. And that's the reason why Asclepius was, that rod is said to be the symbol of medicine. But to cut open, to be open is to be open to both, everything, all of your energies, because Asclepius, like Jason, was raised by the centaur Chiron, who instructed him in the art of medicine. But what he instructed him was how to craft his energies to work with him instead of against him, to work for the collective and liberating the collective with freedom and love versus the death and the destruction and the decay of the air. And so, keeping these airways clear for the manifestation of the serpent. The serpent eats its tail, right? And so we need to have an open mind when it comes to Ophiuchus and the serpent and the serpent holder, the cupbearer. This is such a phenomenal message that we're receiving in the third house. It's absolutely sacred that we understand that our magnetic field is this Pandora's box. It can, once open, it can destroy all living matter. And that's what Jesus saw in the future. That is what his message here in this third house is all about. It's not about merging with a computer. It's about merging together in that collective higher, controlled energy type of field that connects to our Father in heaven, and it connects us all together to heal. Because once we heal, we are no longer that wounded warrior that is causing mayhem. We are then the wounded healer that is bringing peace to the earth. And so I hope that you guys have understood what this message was. Going through these houses, I'm always open to what Christ wants to show me. And I never know what we're going to get into until I actually get into it. And this house has taken me over a week, really, truly, every day, really working on trying to understand what Christ is trying to show us, not what Jennifer wants me to know, what you want. It's being open to the connection, that higher octave that Uranus wants us to see with this, this entering in each house every 7 years, and it being such a collective conscious, this castration, right, where they cut Uranus off from us. They're cutting Uranus, this higher octave, off. And I believe that that is what the story is showing us, is that, when she asked Saturn to castrate, Saturn is not our God. There is no image that is our God. Uranus is not our God. Our God is within. Our God is within, that is coming out of our heart, that is pulsating from our heart. And that is what protects us. And that is what kills us also. That is the magnetic field of the Pandora's box. And we have to understand how we can communicate better with ourselves and with the outer world. And that's what Christ shows us. That's how we're going to bring heaven to earth. The seals reveal that which is within is also without. And so each seal that's represented in the Bible goes back to the energies within. We see them within, and we also see them in our outer world, in the heavens. And so that is what is meant by as above, so below, as within, so without. And we can really get into the different interpretations of the Bible another day. But this is also considered, the seven churches of Asia as well. And the interesting part is that, the medicine symbol adopted by the United States, they dropped the Asclepius symbol with the one serpent, and they adopted two serpents. And so now we have this duality in our medicine that has been brought onto the scene in the early 1900s. And this is where the tricks began in the lab. Hermes, tricks, the trickster. Not really Hermes, but you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what is portraying in our outer world, because there needs balance. We do not have balance. And that's what Christ's third house is showing our story, is that we really need this feminine intuitive balance to take hold, right? The patriarch has, I think it's seen its last day. We have got to bring balance. And, this spoken word, this, duality that we see is a very, it's a broad path. It's a broad path. Okay. So the most people do not understand. They look at the medical field, the science field, as their savior, their heroes, they know everything, and they don't. They are they're misguided. They do not have the intuitive, the spiritual means to understand that this duality that they are playing with, our health, our magnetosphere, it is coming to a head. And this is the revelation that we all must awaken to, is that when we were in the garden, that first sin is, when we took a bite of the apple, you need to understand that that was after we labored. We were eating the labors, the fruit of the labor, right? So this apple is poisonous. It's toxic. It is not healthy for us to sustain. And we have taken the knowledge that was given and we have manipulated it, used it in such a manner to go against our brother that we have killed him. And we continuously are using these tricks of this medical trade, of this science trade, to fill up our pockets while we kill everyone else. And that's just not the way that the story goes. It's not the way that it ends. It ends with us, with all of us coming into agreement and raising our higher consciousness to the light. Not to merge with the machine. It's actually to really raise ourselves and the earth into the light. Not to be using and abusing the magnetic fields with lies and death and manipulation. It's just not. And Jesus shows us this. These medical people, these science people, they glorify. Everybody acts like they're saviors. They're not. Azoth. Look that up. The magnetic fields are our natural connection with the cosmos. And man is compromising these holy fields for power and for greed of self. And the sacrificial lamb, the language of the sacrificial lamb, does not have this in his story. So this is not going into our future. We are, by 2026, we are all going to understand how connected we truly are. Christ was all about truth. That's what he shows us in this house of communications and siblings. This is our story as well. We are about truth. We are about the truth of the cycles within the realm of this reality, of this duality. And Christ is showing us that in his second and third house with Uranus and Aquarius, and that this cycle is for our future communication on Earth. And our magnetic fields it's at risk. Everything that we're seeing right now is at risk, but this risk is destined to happen. We are destined to choose our God. And you can choose in any way that you want. And God has given us all the tools of the language of the sacrificial lamb all throughout our history. All we have to do is seek the truth. When you seek the truth seeks you. Anything that you seek seeks you. And so these seals that we find in Revelations in the Bible coincide with the inner energies, the inner chakras, which Jesus Christ was the master yogi of energies and how to work with instead of against these energies. And in Matthew 7:13, straight is the gate, narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. And I want us all who are seekers of truth to understand the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. I hope that this has been eye-opening for you, and I really truly hope that you have gotten some inspiration and some hope, because that is really what the message of the magnetic field gives to me, is so much hope for a better tomorrow, right? For a healthier tomorrow, because we are all in this together. And I want you to never feel alone. We are always in this together. So until next time, I'll be delivering the fourth house very soon. Doesn't have that many aspects in it. I look forward to delivering that to you very soon. So until then, peace out.